Welcome to another video, guys. With all the events Raid has been giving out lately for Lady Mikage's Fusion Champions, I think it's only right I give you an updated guide for 2026 for one of the best mythical champions out there, which is Lady Mikage. In this video I'm gonna go over the builds you could be going for her, what kind of sets you could be using for PvE and PvP, what kind of masteries, relics, blessings, and anything you need to know about her in order for her to do well. So I hope you find the video helpful, and if you do, a like and subscribe would be great, and don't forget you can check me out live on stream each Tuesday and Thursday, where I do free account takeovers for my viewers. If you want to support the channel for free, start Raid the right way with my premium download link and get yourself 4 amazing champions as soon as you start, and you're also gonna have 48 hours to use the promo code section for an extra legendary amazing champion. But now, let's get into the guides. So, Lady Mikage is definitely one of the best champions you could be getting your hands on, especially since she's basically for free, even though it is gonna be quite the grind to find all of those champions, fuse them, level them, and ascend them, but still, she is very worth it, and she is literally listed as a 5-star champion over at Hell Hades, so you definitely know she will be amazing. She is amazing in Demon Lord and Hydra and Chimera especially. She's also amazing in Waves. I don't get why they gave her literally half a star for Waves. Like, what's wrong with having an amazing stun with turn meter decrease on your second form, and not to mention the big ass ally attack A2 on the first form so you can get through things faster. So they kind of did her dirty here, like doesn't make any sense. But as you see, everything else is super premium, and I would say Sand Devil is also not something she should be getting a 1-star, but what do we know? She's also amazing for arena and everything in between, so all around great stuff. Going through her skills, the most important ones would be the A1, which brings 1 Shadowkin each time you attack with her A1, which is super good, and she also places a shield buff equal to 10% of this champion's max HP on the ally with the lowest HP for 2 turns, meaning that it would be a good idea to actually build Mikage with a good chunk of HP, especially if you're trying to protect somebody on your team. She also would be happy with a little bit of accuracy on her second ability, but it really doesn't matter that much if you're going to use her on her first form, even though if you don't have accuracy you will not be able to extend debuffs on the enemy, but if that's something you can get by without, it's not a big deal to build her with just speed instead of spreading yourself thin with accuracy too. The other important thing about the A2 is she will be amazing on Wixwell teams because she does indeed increase duration of ally buffs, so all around absolutely amazing to be having her on your squad. The A3 is also absolutely top tier with increased attack as well as crit damage, and the increased crit damage is a buff you don't see too many of, so having her is gonna allow you to get 1 extra buff for things like Chimera, which could be pretty important, and this is gonna give you a ton of extra damage for your team, bringing everybody, including herself, for ally attacks. Also super amazing against Fire Knight like that, so very worth it. And let's not forget her passive. At the start of this champion's turn, remove all debuffs from the ally with the highest attack. So if you're smart about building your team, you're gonna have yourself a cleanse for your nuker so he can go ham and smack some people's faces. On the A2, this is mainly her PvP form. You're normally not gonna be using her too much in the second form when you're doing PvE, but to be fair, her A2 is definitely pretty amazing even in PvE, because like I said, during waves this is gonna be amazing. Obviously you are gonna need a lot of accuracy for this form to be worth it, but yeah, her having a decreased turn meter as well as a 1-turn stun on the A2, very good. On the A1 she also brings sleep and also decreases the target's turn meter by 15%, and the A3 places a 50% increased accuracy on all allies for 2 turns, while also removing all buffs from enemies and also bringing big weaken for 2 turns. And of course her passive at the start of this champion's turn decreases the turn meter of the enemy with the highest attack by 15%. All in all, absolutely amazing turn meter control champion with good CC, with good buff strip, you name it, she has it. With that out of the way, when it comes down to Mikage, building her for PvP is gonna be much different than what you built her for PvE, and personally I mainly use her for PvE nowadays. I literally don't use her anywhere in PvP anymore, but she is definitely amazing, especially if she's your first mythical. She definitely has a lot of utility, even though not as much in today's meta. When it comes down to PvE, you are gonna preferably build her in 9-piece protection if you can afford it, with a lot of speed, and if you can, with a good amount of HP, but like I said, you are mainly gonna be using her in her first form. Even though in things like Chimera, you can definitely switch forms if you need the buff strip, if you need the weaken, that kind of stuff definitely could come in handy, and let's not forget she also brings increased accuracy on the second form, so definitely pretty good. But for the most part, you will be using her in the first form, so you can cycle through a lot of extra ally attacks, especially if you bring yourself yourself a good Shadowkin faction champion, like let's say Leonardo, who is a more recent champion, but mainly you definitely would be very happy bringing yourself Ninja, who is definitely the GOAT when it comes down to Mikage teams, because this way you are going to be able to land so many extra A1s, which also brings him a lot of extra turn meter boost. And of course, let's not forget the Shiro, who is another amazing Shadowkin champion to be bringing along the ride. We can also name Harima as a pretty top tier Shadowkin, but basically you get the picture. If you're gonna build her in 9-piece protection, would be best if you give her as much speed as possible. Like I said, accuracy would not be the most important thing in the world, and if you give her a good amount of HP, that'd be great, but the rest doesn't really matter that much, even though having yourself a good amount of resistance would not be the worst idea in the world, so you can actually resist some card CC, so you can maybe use the A2 and reduce the amount of CC that your champions got, so definitely pretty worth it. But of course, I realize most people don't have 9-piece protection, so let's not pretend this is the only way you could build her. Instead, you could go for a Relentless build, which is going to be very, very worth it for her. Having 18% chance to get an extra turn on her would be absolutely amazing, because this way you're going to be able to cycle your A1s more often, so your Shadowkin can slap harder, you're going to be able to use the A3 a lot more often, that kind of stuff. I'm sure anybody who has enough resources to fuse Mikage does have enough good, fast, Relentless gear, so definitely go for that. And the other two pieces could be a couple of speed pieces, could be a couple of perceptions, a couple of ferals, which is basically perception for a couple of pieces, couple of pinpoint items would be nice, and technically speaking, even building her in reflex would be not a bad idea, but personally I definitely would be preferring the extra turn over the reflex, because even her A1 is absolutely amazing, but reflex, reducing the cooldown of your A3 definitely would not be the worst. Would have been nice if I actually managed to find reflex while I was jabbering about it, but yeah, having yourself 40% chance to reduce a random skill's cooldown, definitely not the worst. But in a 9-piece protection, you can't really beat what this is going to be giving you, because you are going to get yourself 5% extra more damage per each buff placed by the wearer, and as you guys saw, we are placing a couple of buffs with this, and also a third buff on your highest attack champion with the A1, so that is going to be plus 15% extra damage thanks to that protection set. Also, if you do have yourself 4 good pieces of Relentless and you still are actually decently endgame, you could also consider actually building her in 3 Merciless accessories plus another Merciless piece at the top. And what is this gonna give you? It's basically gonna be like the Reflex set, but built from accessories. Yes, it's gonna be 10% less chance to reduce the random skills cooldown, but still very, very awesome. Having yourself 4-piece Relentless at the top and a 4-piece Merciless combined with the accessories, definitely very good option. However, if you are gonna be building this champion for PvP, would be nice to bring yourself 4 pieces Stone Skin, or 9-piece Mercurial nowadays is definitely pretty goated, but of course that is gonna be a lot harder to pull off. But the 9-piece Mercurial definitely speak to what this champion is trying to do. Getting yourself 3 total guard stacks on her is also gonna be pretty nasty, and the extra speed you get definitely ain't nothing to scoff at for sure. But also, when you are building Mikage for PvP, you are gonna need, again, a ton of speed, but also a ton of accuracy. When it comes down to building her like this, you are really gonna want yourself to be stripping those buffs with her A3, and you're definitely gonna want to land those stuns and decrease turn meters with the A2, and even the A1 is gonna be important to have a good amount of accuracy so you can actually be turn meter reducing, both with the A1 as well as the passive. So all in all, definitely build her with a ton of accuracy, as much as you humanly can, and as fast as possible in a 4-piece Stone Skin at least. Again, you could finish off the build with a few perception, feral pieces, speed set, that kind of stuff, but all in all, tons of speed, tons of accuracy. We're already on the blessing section, so for the most part, giving her the cruel blessing would be a good idea, both for PvE and doesn't matter too much for PvP if we gotta be honest. If you're really gonna be using her for PvP, you might actually consider things like polymorph, things like intimidating presence, but a good well-rounded choice would definitely be to go with the cruelty. And another really good option would be to consider Brimstone, especially if you have 5-star blessing for her, although having a 5-star blessing for Mikage would definitely not be very easy. But it is definitely a pretty valid option, especially if you don't have yourself a good Brimstone champion on most of your teams for PvE. Moving down to Relics, personally I just slapped a Molten Death Bell on her for the sake of having extra accuracy without actually having to build it. If you're gonna be using her for PvE, it would be absolutely amazing to give her something like the Perched Shadow. This is absolutely huge because the wearer is gonna have over 15% chance of actually receiving an extra turn when using their default skill, and you are gonna be happy using the default skill, but this only activates if at least one active skill is on cooldown. But it's definitely very awesome, especially on things like Chimera, so if you have yourself a Perch Shadow, this would be amazing on her. If you're just lacking some accuracy, you could just slap her with the Death Bell like I did, but if you're gonna be using her for PvP, you can definitely consider giving her a good old stick. The Wand of Submission, still pretty top tier, gives you good amount of HP and also a good amount of speed, and let's not forget the absolutely insane effect of reflecting bad debuffs. When it comes down to Masteries, if you're gonna be using her for PvP, I think you can go with these Masteries so you can get yourself a ton of extra accuracy, and yes, that is exactly what I picked for her back in the day when I was using her for PvP. That's the Masteries I chose from Hell Hades indeed. But if you're gonna be using her for a lot of PvE, you're obviously gonna want to get yourself the good old War Master here. You could give her the defense tree, but you can also consider the combo off with the blue tree as well, again with War Master of course. So definitely a lot of choices to be making with a mythical like this, because both forms are absolutely amazing, so you gotta decide which form is actually gonna be more worth it for you. And let's talk about the books and how important they would be. She definitely is gonna be happier if you book her, but you definitely don't care about fully booking her. The only two important books you are gonna care about would be one landing on your A3 on first form, so you can actually reduce the cooldown by 1. The other books on the first form really don't matter that much. You're gonna get 10% extra damage on the A1, which nobody gives a shit about. And also on the A2, you're really not caring too much because again, it's just damage and ignoring a little bit of res, which is not the worst, but it definitely is not worth a mythical book if you ask me. On the second form, the only important books would be again on the A3, and here you are gonna need a couple of books to fully book her, but obviously you gotta get lucky for them to land here. But if you do get indeed lucky with a couple of books on the second form, that's all you need to do here, because that's gonna reduce your cooldown. You don't really care about the A1 that much, even though obviously the ignore res would be decent, and same can be said for the second form, again would be ignoring res. Of course it's gonna make it a lot easier for you to be landing your debuffs on PvP, but again, if it lands here, you might just save your other mythical books for later, unless you're swimming in them. So that's really about it. No need to do too much more about a champion like this, and do let me know in the comments if you guys want another dedicated detailed guide about another champion I still haven't done a guide about, and I will be happy to provide. I'm not gonna go around showing gameplay right now because she is a pretty straightforward champion once you read the kit, but yeah, all around I think this is gonna be enough for Mikage for now. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, a like and subscribe would be awesome. Don't forget you can check me out live on stream each Tuesday and Thursday for free account takeovers, and also if you want to support the channel for free, you can star rate the right way with 4 amazing champions from my premium download link, and you're also gonna have 48 hours to use the promo code section for another amazing legendary champion. Thanks for watching guys, I'm Crystal5, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.